Let me ask you 3 questions, okay? Number 1, would you prefer a movie or a book? Okay. Number 2, TikTok scrolling or going for a run? Okay, very interesting. Now the last question is the hardest. Video games or meditation? Alright, I think that's enough testing. I have gathered enough information to understand that you, my friend, have a dopamine problem. Let me help you out. Now I'm going to break down exactly what dopamine is, why it's so important, and how we can reframe our view on it to make it work for us rather than against us. We'll explore how dopamine impacts our habits, specifically reading, and learn a 1 simple step process to recalibrate our brain's dopamine system and make reading effortless. Let's dive straight into it. Now, dopamine is a chemical in the brain that helps us feel pleasure, controls our motivations, and overall just makes us feel good. It's released when we do something enjoyable, like eating something yummy or working out, encouraging us to do it again. Dopamine gives us the motivation to do things because we know the positive outcomes from achieving them. When it comes to reading, we know that reading has tons of health benefits, as well as just being enjoyable overall to do. So reading should be easy, right? Unfortunately, companies understand the importance of dopamine and have manipulated it to create foods, games, apps, and websites that are built to give us as much dopamine as possible. Now, our brains are wired to follow the dopamine. So the more dopamine something gives us, the more we become attached to it. That's why we see so many people who are, addicted to video games, drugs, and gambling, right? These activities provide us with so much dopamine that our brains can't live without it. Now, how does this relate to reading? It's actually super important because while reading does give us, a decent amount of dopamine, it simply can't compete with, TikTok, movies, video games, gambling, Maccas, all that kind of stuff. So we tend to prefer doing those activities rather than reading. So we need to do one of 2 things. Now, number 1 is make reading actually give us more dopamine than the other things, so we prefer to read than do those things. Or number 2, we reduce the amount of dopamine we get from these other sources so that reading actually gives us the most dopamine. Now, both methods are, completely valid, but in this video, we're going to focus on method 2. Now, it may sound super difficult at first, but there's actually a super valuable mechanism in the brain that allows us to achieve this, and that's relativity. Now, our brains actually make dopamine relative depending on our dopamine sources. So what exactly does this mean? Let's say TikTok is our largest dopamine source. All the other sources of dopamine don't come close to the amount of dopamine we get from TikTok. So we scroll all the time on TikTok and prefer to scroll over other activities like reading simply because they give us less dopamine. But imagine if TikTok was out of the picture. Our largest dopamine source would give us far less dopamine than TikTok. But because our dopamine receptors are relative, we get roughly the same effect as TikTok. So if TikTok was the highest dopamine source and reading was the second highest, if we remove TikTok, that means that we would get the same kind of feel-good effects that we would get from TikTok, but instead for reading. So that's what we're going to tap into. Think back to your grandparents. Have you ever wondered how on earth, they got by without TikTok or social media or phones? Well, their largest dopamine source was most likely chess or reading. So we need to do something similar. If we can remove or even just reduce our largest dopamine sources, then we can make dopamine from reading more desirable and start reading effortlessly. So now we understand what we need to do. So how exactly do we do that? Well, there's one super simple and straightforward method that we're going to use to remove our largest dopamine sources and make reading addictive. Now, that one thing is being bored. Let's do a quick exercise, okay? I want you to pause the video and stay completely still for 1 minute. Do nothing. Just find a point in the room and stare at it for the whole minute. Now, I'll be waiting right here. So go, pause the video, tell me when you've done, okay? Great job. If you managed, fantastic. If you didn't, that's completely fine. But one thing I want you to realize is how uncomfortable you felt being bored. Because we're always, consuming dopamine, our brains start to panic because we are doing nothing. And it makes us crave something, because we need dopamine. Now, that's usually why when you're bored or uncomfortable, you tend to grab your phone instinctively and hop on TikTok or Instagram. We need to break that cycle by pushing through the storm, because at the end is a lovely blue sky and rainbows. Push through the boredom and all that craving, withdrawals, and uncomfortableness will just disappear. That's what we want. Now, you could call this a dopamine detox, but we aren't actually removing dopamine, because removing dopamine is actually a really bad thing. All we're doing is regulating our dopamine, fixing the issues that were already there. The issue with TikTok and movies is that they give us so much dopamine that our dopamine dam is kind of overflowing. There's too much dopamine, okay? And it's damaging our dam. What we want to do is restrict a lot of the water from the dopamine dam and regulate the dam, so we're fixing it. And to achieve this, we need to be bored. By being bored long enough, we will realize we don't actually need TikTok or gaming anymore, and we'll actually find reading far more appealing. Now, I don't want you to think you need to completely remove all your socials, video games, and junk food. You just need to reduce your usage, because in some way you are addicted. Everyone is addicted to something, but it's our job to improve ourselves one step at a time every single day. I remember I used to use TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat, for communication and just for phone use all the time. My screen time would be roughly 7 hours a day, okay? Whenever I hopped on, the train or the bus, I would straight away hop on my phone, check my messages on Instagram, Snapchat, and start scrolling on TikTok. Now, I actually have a Pixel 7. Don't bully me, but I do get quite a few bugs on the phone. I love the phone, but I get bugs. And one day, my Snapchat actually just stopped working. It just died, okay? I uninstalled it, reinstalled it, did everything. Nothing would fix it. And there was a moment of panic, because I was thinking, these people who are messaging me on Snapchat aren't going to be able to message me anymore, because I can't respond to them, okay? So I panicked for a few hours. And then after that kind of boredom set, I realized I didn't actually need it. And now I haven't used Snapchat in well over 2 years, and I'm perfectly fine. It's just that withdrawal stage, when I lost Snapchat, then my brain was panicking, because it was thinking, I've just lost a major dopamine source. What am I going to do? But then your brain adjusts, regulates, and the dopamine fixes itself. So next time you feel the urge to hop on your phone, sit through the boredom, then pick up the book. You'll feel 100 times better. Trust me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something new. If you think I missed anything, let me know in the comments below. And make sure to like and subscribe for more great videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.